The dress doesn't fit right. That's the first thing I notice. It's too loose around the waist, too tight across the shoulders. Because it wasn't made for me. It was made for my twin sister Sora. My hands won't stop shaking. I'm standing behind a heavy wooden door, and on the other side of it, 300 people are waiting. Candles everywhere. White roses flown in from somewhere that probably can't remember. And at the end of that aisle, stood a man I have never spoken a full sentence to in my life. Yoon Jae-won. He's 34 years old. Controls half the port operations on the south coast. The kind of man whose name people say quietly, even in rooms where they think they're alone. My father calls him a business partner. I call him what he is. The music starts. Someone opens the door. And I walked in. I kept my eyes forward. Veil down. My steps so slow and measured like Sora showed me last night when she was still the one doing this. When this was still her life and not mine. Left foot. Right foot. Don't look at anyone. Don't trip. Don't breathe too loud. I can feel 300 pairs of eyes on me and not a single one of them knows. Not the guests. Not the officiant. Not even my mother, sitting in the front row with tears streaming down her face. And God, I can't tell if she's crying because she thinks this is beautiful or because she knows exactly what she's watching and she's relieved it isn't her problem anymore. My father stood at the end of the aisle. He held out his arm. And I took it. He leaned in, just slightly, lips barely moving. Shoulders back, he says. You're not Era today. No. Today I'm Sora. Jae-won is already at the altar when I arrived. Dark suit. No tie. He's the only man in this room not performing. Everyone else is dressed to impress him. He's dressed like a man who stopped caring what rooms thought of him a long time ago. I didn't look at his face. I looked at his hands. It was calm. Still. Clasped in front of him like this is just another meeting. My father transferred my hand to his. His grip is firm. Not rough. Just certain. Like everything he touches, he already owns. The officiant began. I stared at the floor. Do you, Sora Yoon, take this man? And that's when it happens. He leans down. Slow. Like he has all the time in the world. His mouth near my ear. And he says, so quietly that only I could possibly hear it. I know you're not her. My entire body goes cold. I didn't move. Couldn't breathe. My eyes stayed fixed on the floor and my hand stays in his and I think, very clearly, I am going to die in this dress. He straightens back up. Looks at the officiant. Continue, he says. Say I do. That's what I told myself. Just say the words. You came this far. You put on the dress, you walked the aisle, you held his hand, just say 2 words and it's done. Whatever happens after, you deal with after. Do you take this man? I do. My voice didn't shake. Sora's voice would have shaken. Maybe that's how he knew I wasn't her. The reception is a performance I will have to survive for 4 hours. I smiled at people whose names I half know. I let women I've never met hold my hands and tell me how beautiful I look. I ate almost nothing because the corset makes it impossible and because my stomach is in knots and every few minutes, from across the room, I feel him looking at me. Not the way men usually look at women at weddings. Like he's reading me. Taking notes. My father found me by the champagne table around hour 2. He looked calm. He always looks calm. It's the most dangerous thing about him. Well done, he says, picking up a glass. He knows, I say. A pause. Just a small one. What did he say? Nothing. He knows, Dad. My father takes a sip. Sets the glass down. Then he chose to proceed anyway. Which means we're fine. That doesn't make us fine. That makes us in debt to whatever reason he had for. Era. His voice drops. It never needs to be. You handled it. Let me handle the rest. He walks away. And I stood there holding a glass of champagne I haven't touched, watching my husband work the room like a man who has never once in his life been surprised by anything. He chose to proceed anyway. Why? The suite is on the 42nd floor. I've been in expensive rooms before. My father's world has money in it, always has. But this is different. This isn't new money trying to look old. This is just quiet. Heavy. The kind of wealth that doesn't need to prove itself. I sat on the edge of the bed still in the dress when he comes in. He loosens his jacket. Doesn't look at me immediately. Goes to the window. Looks out at the city like. So I decided to go first because waiting is worse. How long did you know? He turns. Studies me for a moment. Before the ceremony started. How? Your sister has a scar. Left wrist. Cooking accident when she was 12. He glanced at my wrists. You don't. Something hot and humiliating floods my chest. We'd thought of everything. The hair, the makeup, the way Sora walks slightly pigeon-toed, and I practiced it for 3 days. A cooking accident that happened 12 years ago. Something so small. Why did you let it happen? I ask. He got quiet for a moment. Then he sits down in the chair across the room. Like he's being deliberately careful about distance. Because I didn't want your sister, he says. The room feels like it tilts slightly. What? The arrangement was never about Sora specifically. It was about your family. The alliance. The access your father's operation gives mine. He looks at me evenly. You're the one who runs his operation. You're the one I need in this position. My mouth went dry. You're saying you knew about me. I'm saying I've been watching your father's organization for 2 years. I know who does what. I know who the soldiers are and who the strategists are. He paused. I know which daughter actually keeps the books. I stood up. I didn't know why. Maybe because sitting feels too vulnerable right now. So this was business, he said simply. It was always business. Something shifts in me right then. I don't know why. But more of recalibration. Because here's what I know about business. If he's telling me what he needs me for, he's also telling me what leverage I have. I looked at him across this quiet, expensive room. All right, I say. Then we understand each other. He almost smiled. Then quickly straightened up. Almost, he says, but not yet. Here's what I knew going into this before I tell you what I didn't know. My father, Yoon Jae-won, built his organization over 20 years. Import, export, the kind of paperwork that looks clean until you know where to look. He had 3 lieutenants. Over the last year, 2 of them were arrested. 1 disappeared. Sora never knew any of this. She knew Dad had business dealings. She knew men came to the house. She knew not to ask questions. That was the deal we made without words when we were teenagers. She'd be the soft one, I'd be the hard one, and between us we'd survive whatever our family was. The marriage alliance was supposed to stabilize everything. Jae-won's network is legitimate on paper in ways ours never will be. His port access, his logistics infrastructure, for my father, connecting to that is the difference between treading water and actually swimming. What I didn't know, not then, not at the altar, was that my father's organization was already compromised. And Jae-won knew it. And one of them was using this marriage to get something. I just didn't know yet which one was using which. We develop a routine, because routines are armor. He leaves early. I'm usually already up. We have coffee in the kitchen with the kind of silence that isn't uncomfortable but isn't comfortable either. It's careful. We're both careful. He doesn't touch me. I want to be clear about that. This arrangement has rooms and walls, and I think we both understand instinctively where they are. He gave me access to his household accounts on day 3. I didn't ask for it. He just put a card on the kitchen counter with a note that said household expenses and nothing else. I didn't use it for 2 weeks. Then I bought groceries because the housekeeper he employed was ordering everything pre-packaged and expensive and inefficient, and it bothered me. He noticed. He didn't say anything for 3 days. Then one morning he looked at the refrigerator and said, "You reorganized it." The old system made no sense. The housekeeper has been with me for 6 years. She's been doing it wrong for 6 years. He looked at me. That look he does where I can't tell if he's annoyed or something else. "Don't fire her," I said. "She's good at everything else. Just let me handle the food." "Fine," he said. That was, I think, the first real negotiation we had. And we were both talking about groceries and we were both talking about something else entirely. I started to understand him in pieces. He doesn't sleep well. I hear him sometimes at 2, 3 in the morning. Moving through the apartment. Not restless, exactly. More like, watchful. Like a man who learned a long time ago that sleeping too deeply costs you something. He reads actual books. Physical ones. I found that strange. His entire operation runs on encrypted digital infrastructure and the man has a shelf of paperback novels he won't throw away even when the spines crack. He has a younger brother he doesn't talk about but pays for. I found the transfers in the household account. Medical facility in Busan. Monthly. Consistent. I didn't ask. He didn't offer. But I filed it away because information is the only currency that actually matters. My father called every 3 days the first month. Always the same script. "How are things? Is he treating you well?" "Good, good. Are you getting close to him? Can you access his schedule? His network contacts?" I always said yes to the first 2. I was always vague about the rest. The third call, my father said, "We need the logistics manifest for the Incheon operation. Jae-won controls the terminal access. Find out how he routes it." I said, "I'm working on it." I hung up. I sat with my phone in my hands for a long time. Because here is the thing about being raised to be your father's weapon. Eventually you have to decide what you actually want to hit. Act 4, the crack. 6 weeks in, something happens that I don't plan for. Jae-won has a meeting run late. I know because I've started, quietly, paying attention to his schedule, not for my father, just because understanding the rhythm of a space makes me feel safer in it. He's usually back by 8. By 9:30 I'm not worried but I'm aware. He comes in at 10:15. He looks, not injured. But something's been spent. Something got used up in whatever that meeting was. He goes to the kitchen. Pours water. Drinks it standing at the counter like a man who's been running. I'm at the table with a book I'm not reading. Bad meeting? I ask. He looks over. Like he forgot I'd be there. Which is interesting because I'm always there. Complicated, he says. You don't have to tell me. I know. He pours more water. Stays at the counter. And then, because I think he's more tired than he realized, he says. One of my operations managers has been skimming. For about 8 months. I had to make a decision tonight about what to do about it. What did you decide? To give him one chance to make it right before I decide he doesn't get a chance. I look at him. That's more generous than I expected. He has a daughter, Jae-won says. 8 years old. The room is very quiet. That won't always be a reason you accept, I say carefully. No, he agrees. But tonight it was. I look back at my book. That's not weakness, I say. Without looking up. In case you're wondering what I'm thinking. A long pause. I wasn't wondering, he says. But I think he was. This is where I should tell you I was being strategic. That I said it because I knew it would soften him, build trust, earn access. I should tell you it was calculated. It wasn't. That's the problem. The call from Sora comes on a Tuesday. I step into the bathroom, run the tap, and answer. Are you okay? She says immediately. She always leads with that. It's the most Sora thing about her. I'm fine. Era. I said I'm fine, Sora. Are you safe? She's staying with a friend outside the city. She sounds okay. Tired but okay. I had to leave, she says. I couldn't, I couldn't do what you do. I'm not. I know. I didn't know Dad would send you instead. I thought. What did you think would happen? And I hate the edge in my voice, but I can't fully remove it. Silence. I thought he'd call it off, she says quietly. And there it is. Sora ran because she thought her running would end it. She thought she was escaping, not passing the torch. She didn't know our father well enough. She never did. That was always my job, to know him well enough for both of us. It's fine, I say. Voice flat. Controlled. Stay where you are. Don't contact Dad yet. Era, if he's dangerous. I can handle dangerous. I hang up. I look at myself in the mirror for a long moment. I think about what Jae-won said that first night. You're the one who keeps the books. You're the one I need in this position. He knew. Before any of this started, he knew who I was. Which means someone told him. I started pulling threads. Quietly. Carefully. The way I do everything. I have access to the household accounts but not his operational finances. That's a different system, different access. But I don't need his system. I need my father's, and that one I've known how to navigate since I was 19. What I found took me 3 days to fully understand. My father's operation has a leak. Has had one for over a year. Money moving in patterns that don't match any operation I authorized or tracked. Rerouted. Cleaned. Moving through infrastructure I don't recognize, until I do. Until I trace it far enough and I recognize the port terminal codes. Incheon. Jae-won's terminal access. The money from my father's operation has been quietly flowing through Jae-won's infrastructure for 14 months. Systematically. Piece by piece. He's not a business partner. He's been dismantling us from the inside. And this marriage, this whole arrangement, it wasn't to stabilize my father's operation. It was to get me into his house. To get my father to trust the alliance. To get close enough to finish what he started. I sit with this for a long time. The file open on my laptop. Numbers that don't lie. I think about coffee in the mornings. I think about that's not weakness, in case you were wondering. I think about a younger brother in a medical facility in Busan and paperback novels with cracked spines. I think about the way he said you're the one I need in this position, and how I felt something shift when he said it, something I told myself was strategy. I close the laptop. I go to bed. I don't sleep. In the morning he's in the kitchen when I come out. Same as always. Coffee already made. He pours me a cup without asking because he knows how I take it by now. When did that happen? I didn't notice when that happened. He looks up when I sit down. And I look at him. And I think, he has no idea that I know. And this is the thought that keeps me up last night and is keeping me together by a thread right now. He knows I'll find out eventually. He always knew. And he let it happen anyway. Which means either he underestimated me. Or he wanted me to find it. I pick up my coffee. How's your brother? I ask. Casual. Like I'm asking about the weather. He goes very still. Just for a second. Half a second. But I've been trained to see what people don't show, and he just showed me something. Fine, he says. Good, I say. We drink our coffee. Neither of us says anything else. But the air in the room has changed and we both feel it and neither of us will be the one to blink first. 3 days later I put the file on his desk. Printed. Physical. 27 pages. He's sitting behind the desk. He looks at the pages. Looks at me. Doesn't touch them. How long? I ask. How long have I known you'd find this, or how long has it been running? Both. He leans back in his chair. And for the first time since I've known him, he looks like he's deciding how honest to be. Not calculating, deciding. There's a difference. 14 months for the operation, he says. And I knew you'd find it within 60 days of being in this house. You lasted 51. So I was slow. You were thorough. A pause. There's a difference. I put my hands on the desk. Lean forward. My father's operation. You've been taking it apart piece by piece. Yes. Using this marriage as cover. Yes. Using me. He doesn't answer immediately. And that pause, that specific pause, does something complicated to my chest that I refuse to examine right now. That was the plan, he says finally. Was. I stare at him. What changed? I ask. He looks at me for a long moment. And Yoon Jae-won, who is never anything less than composed, looks, just briefly, like a man who doesn't have a clean answer. You reorganized the refrigerator, he says. I blink. What? And you told me that was not weakness. And you learned my brother's name before I told it to you, and you never used it against me even though you could have. He looks at the file on the desk. And you've been sitting on this for 3 days instead of running. Running where? I say. Back to my father. And tell him what? That I failed. That I got outplayed. I laugh, but there's nothing warm in it. He'd never trust me again. Is that the only reason you didn't run? The question lands differently than he meant it to. Or maybe exactly how he meant it to. I straighten up. Cross my arms. My father, I say carefully, is not a good man. I know that. I've always known that. I've spent 12 years making myself useful enough that it didn't matter. I look at the file. What you're doing to his operation, some of it, he deserves. Some of it hurts people who don't. I know, Jae-won says. That's why I stopped 3 of the transfers last month. I stare at him. There are people in your father's organization who are just workers, he says. Drivers. Clerks. People who needed a job and didn't ask too many questions. I'm not interested in destroying them. Just my father. Your father specifically did something to someone. He stops. Jaw tight. Yes. Specifically your father. The brother. Busan. Medical facility. I don't ask. I won't ask. Not yet. So what now? I say. You have what you needed. I know what you've done. What happens now? He looks at me. I don't know, he says. And I believe him. Which is the most terrifying part. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat on the balcony at 2 in the morning and I think about my sister. I think about what Sora said. I thought he'd call it off. I think about the fact that Sora ran and I ran toward, and between the two of us, we have always split the world that way. She takes the softness and I took the weight, and neither of us ever got to choose. I hear the door behind me. I don't turn around. He sits in the other chair. Doesn't say anything. Just sits there with me in the dark and the city spread out below us 30-something floors down. After a long time I say, my sister ran because she's not like me. I know, he says. You would have eaten her alive in a month. Probably. That's not a compliment to you. I know that too. I look out at the city. When you were watching my father's operation. Watching me. What did you think I was? He considers it. Dangerous, he says. Disciplined. Completely wasted in the role you were in. I wasn't wasted. I was necessary. There's a difference between necessary and valued. You know that. The city hums below us. Somewhere a siren. Far away. He's never going to forgive me for this, I say. Not sad. Just factual. Whatever I do now, whichever way I go. My father will see it as betrayal. Either I help him against you or I stop. Or you don't, Jae-won says. Or I don't. Silence. What did my father do? I ask. To your brother. A long pause. Long enough that I think he won't answer. 7 years ago, he says, my brother was 22. He got involved in one of your father's operations. Low level. He didn't understand what he was carrying. When it went wrong, his voice stays even but it costs him. Your father let him take the fall completely. My brother spent 4 years in prison. He came out, he stops. He's not the same. I close my eyes. I didn't know, I say. I know you didn't. That doesn't make it. I know, he says. I'm not blaming you. We sit in the dark. And I think about 12 years of making myself useful. Of being the hard one, the one who takes the weight, the one who keeps the books and manages the mess and tells herself this is just business, this is just survival, this is just what you do. My father let a 22-year-old boy rot in prison to save himself. And I kept his books for 12 years. I don't say anything for a long time. Then, the 3 transfers you stopped. The ones protecting the workers. I look over at him. You didn't have to do that. No, he agrees. Why did you? He looks back at the city. Because I met someone who reorganizes refrigerators and tells the truth when they don't have to, he says quietly. And it reminded me that I'm supposed to be better than the people I'm fighting. Something cracks open in my chest. I've been holding it shut for weeks. Months. Years, maybe. I don't let it show. I'm not ready for that. But it cracks. Act 8, The Choice. My father calls the next morning. I let it ring 3 times. Then I answer. The Incheon manifest, he says. No preamble. I need it by Friday. I look at the coffee in my hands. I can't get it, I say. Pause. Era. I've been in this house 2 months. He doesn't trust me with operational documents. I'm sorry, I can't. You can, my father says. Voice low. You're exactly like me, you know how to. I'm not like you, I say. The words come out quiet. But they land hard. I can feel it through the phone. Silence. What did you say to me, he says. I said I can't get you the manifest. I'll call you later this week. I hang up. I put the phone face down on the table. My hands are steady. I find Jae-won in his office an hour later. I put my phone on his desk. My father is going to know within 48 hours that something's wrong. He'll start looking for other ways in. You should know that. Jae-won looks at the phone. Looks at me. What did you tell him? That I couldn't get what he wanted. I pause. I didn't tell him about the transfers. I didn't tell him what I found. Why? I pull out a chair and sit down across from him. Like this is a meeting. Because that's how I know how to do things. Structured. Clear. I want to negotiate, I say. He blinks. Just barely. Negotiate what? My father's workers. The low-level people, drivers, clerks, anyone who's just an employee. Whatever you're finishing with his operation, they walk away. They don't lose their income, they don't get exposed, they don't get caught in whatever comes next. He studies me. And in exchange I don't warn him. I hold his gaze. You get to finish what you started. Cleanly. Silence. You do that, he says. To your own father. My father made choices, I say. I'm not responsible for his choices. I'm responsible for mine. Jae-won looks at me for a long time. The workers walk, he says finally. I'll restructure it. Anyone below lieutenant level is clean. I nod. I stand up. Era, he says. I stop at the door. After this is done, he says carefully. What do you want? For yourself. Not for your father, not for your sister. You. I turn around. And I realize, I don't actually know. I've spent so long being what everyone needed me to be that the question feels like a foreign language. I'll let you know, I say, when I figure it out. My father's operation takes another 6 weeks to fully unravel. He doesn't know it's happening until it's mostly done. When he finally calls, not me, he calls one of his remaining lieutenants and the lieutenant tells him, I hear through Jae-won's network that Yoon Jae-soo drove to 3 different locations in one day like a man trying to put his hands in a dam that's already broken. He calls me twice. I let it go to voicemail. The third time, I answer. You knew, he says. Not a question. Yes, I say. The silence on the line is the kind that contains a whole history. 26 years of it. I think about being 8 years old and deciding I was going to be useful. I think about being 19 and learning to read a balance sheet. I think about Sora's face when we were little, how she used to look at me like I knew all the answers, and how I used to pretend I did. I kept the workers safe, I say. All the low-level staff. They're fine. You think that makes it? I think that's what I had to offer and I offered it. My voice is steady. What you did to Jae-won's brother. I didn't know. You should know that I didn't know. Another silence. He would have destroyed us anyway, my father says finally. Probably, I agree. But you could have not given him the reason. He hangs up. I sit with the dead phone line for a while. Sora calls a week later. She's heard. Of course she's heard. Are you staying? She asks. With him. I look around the apartment. The reorganized kitchen. The books on the shelf. The balcony where we sat in the dark and I let something crack open in my chest. I don't know yet, I say honestly. Do you? She hesitates. Do you have feelings for him? I think about what feelings for someone even means when you've built your entire identity around not having soft ones. I think about the moment I decided not to run and I can't fully tell you if it was strategy or something else. I think about the fact that I still can't tell. I think so, I say. I think that's the problem. That's not a problem, Sora says softly. It is when you can't tell how much was real and how much was 2 people running operations on each other. She goes quiet. Was any of it real? She asks. I close my eyes. The refrigerator was real, I say. And I know that sounds insane. But Sora knows me well enough to hear what I mean. The night after I hang up with Sora, Jae-won comes home. He sets his keys down. Looks at me at the kitchen table. It's done, he says. I nod. He pours 2 glasses of something. Sets one in front of me. Sits down across the table. We sit there. I need to ask you something, I say. All right. The first night. When you told me you knew. When you said you needed me in this position, was that true? Or was it something you said to keep me compliant? He looks at his glass. Then at me. It was true, he says. I needed you here so I could finish what I was doing. That was true. A pause. That it stopped being the only reason, that was not something I planned for. When? I ask. When you told me it wasn't weakness, he says immediately. No hesitation. Like he's had the answer ready for a while. I look at him. This man who watched my father's organization for 2 years. Who planned this marriage like a chess move. Who has a brother in Busan and paperback novels and doesn't sleep past 3 in the morning. This man who stopped 3 transfers because of people he didn't owe anything to. I don't know how to do this, I say. And I mean, all of it. Whatever this is. Whatever comes next. I don't have a framework for this because my whole life I've had a framework for everything and this has none. Neither do I, he says. That's not reassuring. No, he agrees. It's not. I pick up the glass. He picks up his. We don't toast. We just drink. Together. In the quiet kitchen of an apartment that wasn't supposed to be mine, in a life I didn't choose, sitting across from a man I didn't plan for. And I think, this is not a love story. Not exactly. It's two people who tried to use each other and ended up somewhere neither of them mapped. Maybe that's more honest than love. Maybe that's its own thing entirely. I don't have a word for it yet. I'll figure it out. I never sent my father the manifest. I never warned Jae-won when I could have. I never ran, even when running would have been easier. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, which part, I never know how to say. The answer is different every time I try to find it. Jae-won and I are something. Not simple. Not finished. I reorganize his refrigerator and he doesn't sleep past 3 and we are two people who know too much about each other to pretend anymore. That might be enough. I'm still deciding. This has been a fictional story created for entertainment. Thank you for listening, and if you're new here, welcome to Benny's Story Studio. Don't forget to subscribe.